In this video, we're going to explore a quick overview of directional terminology for human anatomy. So you need to be able to say what's up, what's down, what's front, back, left, right, inside, outside, that kind of thing. If you don't understand directions, you won't understand where anything's at, and you'll get very confused when you're trying to learn more complex anatomy, because as soon as somebody says, oh, the anterior this or the superficial that, you're like, what are they even talking about? And so learning these basic terms allows you to enter the conversation and better understand anatomy. Let's check it out. My name is Anthony Davis, and this is Shapeshift Wellness, where we explore the science of fitness, yoga, and meditation. If you like that sort of thing, subscribe to my channel. Let's learn the terms of directions in human anatomy. Quick note, these are not a comprehensive list of all of the possible terms of describing two relationships. So what we're doing is we're taking a select group of common terms that are used to describe two things in relationship to each other. So for example, if we are giving directions to a person, we might say that the cafe is north of town, right? North of town. So we have two things and we describe them in relationship to each other. So one thing is north of the other thing. So here we might say that something is superficial to another thing versus it is deep to another thing. So in this case, we have a muscle which they are pointing at. Here we are, the biceps brachii muscle, and that muscle is superficial. It is superficial, like people who are superficial are just on the surface. They're like a surface level person. There's no substance underneath it, right? Versus somebody who is deep, like this humerus bone right here. So the deep, oh, you're profound, you're so deep, right? So you're underneath, you've dived deep. So here we go. The bone is obviously deep to the muscle, and the muscle is superficial to the bone. Next up on our anatomical relationships, by the way, these all exist in pairs. So if we're describing north, well, north is the opposite of south. East is the opposite of west. Up is the opposite of down. So they all come in pairs. Okay, so the next thing that we'll explore is posterior and anterior. So posterior means towards the back side of the body. And we also call that dorsal, because think about a dolphin. They would have the dorsal fin on their back, essentially, right? Because I know they swim in a different orientation to the way we are, but that's their back, and that's where their dorsal fin is. So we call that posterior. You can also think about it like your posterior, your butt, your derriere, whatever. And the opposite of that is anterior, which is also called ventral. I kind of remember it so this is the front side of your body, and I remember it like if I'm venting, I ventilate through my mouth. If I have to like, oh God, I really gotta vent, well, then I'm gonna blah, 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 blah. I'm going to word vomit out the front of my face, right? So anterior or ventral is the front. So in this case, we have posterior is pointing to some muscles on the back versus anterior. This arrow is pointing to the pec major muscle here, okay? So for example, the shoulder blade is on the back, and so the shoulder blade is posterior to the pec major muscle, and the pec major muscle is anterior or ventral to the shoulder blade. Cool. Next up on our relationships is lateral and medial. Lateral is towards the outside of the body, and medial is towards the midline of the body. I just remember that because medial is an M, and you can think M for midline or towards the middle. And this would be in a vertical orientation, so something towards the outside versus the inside, okay? Now the arrows have disappeared here because I didn't like where the arrows were, so I'm gonna just show you here. So right here is the thumb of this individual. So the thumb would be lateral because it's more towards the outside than the pinky in the anatomical position. So that's actually important. Real quick, let's back up. All of these relationships that I'm describing currently are from the anatomical position, which is the position that this model is in right now, which is just standing in a neutral position with the palms facing forward. So again, lateral towards the outside, and with the palms face forward, the thumb is lateral to the pinky. Next up, superior and inferior, which we also can refer to as cranial or caudal. And if that wasn't enough synonyms, superior and cranial also are synonyms with cephalad. So superior, somebody who is superior or thinks they're superior to you, thinks they're above you, right? And they might look down their noses at somebody who they believe is inferior to them. And so in this case, they're pointing to the eyes and the mouth, and the eyes are superior to the mouth. The eyeballs are above the mouth. And the opposite of that would be to say that the mouth is inferior to the eyes. Okay. Again, this has no meaning of like good or bad as we use it in common language. This is literally a description of two things in space and where they are in relationship to each other. So if I were to use their synonyms, cranial and caudal, I would say that the eyes are cranial to the mouth, and the mouth is caudal to the eyes. So caudal means tail. Cranial is cranium, like your skull, so towards the skull or towards the tail. And the other synonym for cranial is cephalad. Like think about encephalitis, which is when your brain swells up. It's terrible. Oh, sorry. All right, so proximal and distal. So proximal and distal, in this case, I'm not sure what should be pointed to here. So the short head of the biceps here, for example, is proximal to the hand, right? So your biceps are proximal to the hand or wrist. And the wrist is more at a distance. It is distal. It is at a distance away from the midline of the body. So the wrist is distal to the biceps. Or you could say the shoulder, now I'm flipping it, the shoulder is proximal. It is closer in proximity to the center of the body. The shoulder is proximal to, let's say, the elbow. Okay? And that is all of the relationships we are going to explore today. I hope that helped. Thanks. I'll see you in the next episode.